All right, Merry Christmas, everyone. It's Jeff Zito. Thanks for checking out another episode of the Celebrity Jobber podcast. And wherever you're listening, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, please subscribe. We'd also love a 5-star rating, and also please leave a review. You can go back and check out past guests and episodes online at celebrityjobber.com. We examine the lives of celebrities before fame, and everybody has a different path. And then there are some, like today's guest. You know, sometimes it just so happens to work out where you're born and you're famous. And that wasn't always the case for Sean Lennon, but it kind of was. He appeared on one of his mom's albums at a very, very young age, and pretty much by osmosis got into the music industry. Although he doesn't actually consider this a job. So we are not going to hear an episode of Celebrity Jobber, which, you know, kind of talks about Sean Lennon before he was famous, because he was always famous. He's the son of John Lennon and Yoko Ono. That's going to make you famous, you know, right out of the chute. But we can talk to him a little bit about his early life, stops along the way, where he's at today, some of the things that he's working on, maybe some of the things he has planned for the future. I was actually a big fan of one of Sean Lennon's projects in the 90s called Chibo Motto. They were an Asian American alternative rock band from the mid to late 90s. And Sean ended up joining that band and collaborating with them for a few years. But there's a connection that I have to Sean Lennon that happened to me at a very, very early age, which I want to share with Sean, which has to do with the day that I found out his father was murdered. It's a pretty formative memory in my life. So here we go. Merry Christmas once again, everybody. The son of John Lennon and Yoko Ono, Sean Lennon, is my guest this week on Celebrity Jobber.
The Celebrity Jobber podcast with Jeff Zito. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, give a 5-star rating, and leave a review. Check out all our past episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you pod. What if these celebrities weren't famous? What would they have become? What was their first job? We're about to find out.
Sean, how are you, man?
I'm good. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing great. I want to share something with you. I have this connection with you, a formative memory, if you will. We're the same age, and we just passed the 45th anniversary of your father's passing. And I remember going to school. You know, it happened at night, so we didn't learn about things back then like we do now on social media. I go to school the next morning, and the teacher, Mrs. Begman, gets us all around and tells us what has happened. She tells the class that John Lennon has passed away. And I'm 5 years old. And she said, you know, he has a little boy that's your age. And imagine what he's feeling right now. So that she's teaching 5-year-old kids empathy. And it's just, I remember looking over to this kid, Robbie Wardick, who lived with his dad, who started to cry. And it was such a formative memory for me at such a young age. So can you tell me a little bit about, you were so young, what were your thoughts on that day?
It was a nightmare. I remember, I remember a lot, man. It was deeply traumatizing, but it also kind of forged my personality, I think. The irony or the great paradox of life is that which doesn't, kill you really makes you stronger. And it's such a cliche, but I feel like if you can survive something, it actually gives you kind of strength and insight that you would not have had otherwise. I mean, that's what's so tragic about life in general. And I think you find that with anybody who's survived anything difficult. If you ask them about it, people who've survived cancer, they always say that they wouldn't have not gone through that because they felt it taught them something. And so I think, with tragedy comes wisdom, and there's something bittersweet about that, but that's the way it goes.
Celebrity Jobber. The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito.
What I was trying to get to was at 5 years old. I mean, such a young, didn't know much about anything at 5 years old. And I was just wondering at that age if you had vivid memories of that time.
I do. I do have vivid memories. I mean, there's actually a phenomenon psychologically that when you are traumatized as a child, it can actually make your memory really good. And I remember, 3, 4, and 5 better than I remember 13, 14, and 15,
wow,
to be honest. At the time, there were thousands of people outside. There were police barricades outside, and there were thousands of people singing Give Peace a Chance and all these Beatles songs. And my window was right there. I mean, I couldn't go to sleep at night because there were so many people camped out in Central Park, singing my dad's songs, which there was something nice about it, but it was also a little bit scary, to be honest.
Right? Yeah, I can imagine.
Especially since, a member of the public had done that. So it was a growing up time. I have to be honest that I think I probably aged prematurely at that moment. Even though I was still in the body of an infant, I think it woke me up in a big way. Yeah, I mean, and I think it's taken the rest of my life to sort of process it, and I don't think I'll ever be done figuring it out, to be honest.
No. And at such a young age, you got into music, and I'm a big fan of Chibo Motto, FYI. I don't know if you were on. I think you played the Viva La Woman tour. I remember that was a crazy night for me. That was at Janice Landing in St. Petersburg, Florida. But I can, other than music, I know that you went to Columbia. I know that you majored in anthropology. Were you thinking about another life, another occupation, or were you just young going, hey, I'm going to college. That's what we do when we're this age. And what were your thoughts about life at college, at Columbia, what you were going to do?
Well, to be honest, I never got a degree in anthropology. It was just something I was interested in. But I left college to go on tour with my mom, actually, because we had done a record together. And I was a big fan of my mother's earlier work, the more experimental stuff like Plastic Ono Lennon. And she had been making all these pop records my whole life, which I really loved, to be honest. But I wanted her to make a record in that old style of the, I guess that kind of punk rock Wilder style. And so I made a record with her while I was in college. And I thought it was really good. It's a record called Rising. And I still think it's a pretty amazing album. And looking back, it was really cool of her to allow me to do that. It was me and my friend group who recorded the album, and she essentially let me kind of co-produce it, co-write it with her. And looking back, I didn't appreciate it at the time. But, her bands for albums used to be people like Eric Clapton and Ringo and Hugh McCracken and Steve Gadd and, the greatest players of all time, Tony Levin. And it didn't occur to me that how hip it was of her to kind of like let her weird 17-year-old kid play with her, or 18. I went to college pretty young, because I skipped a grade when I was little. But so I left college because of that, because it was like I started having so much fun playing music, and I just thought, oh, I don't need college. I'll go on tour. And that's when I met Chibo Motto. That's when I started touring with Chibo Motto, and then I met the Beastie Boys, and that's how my whole career got started. But to be honest, young people out there, I would say that I regret leaving college, because it just always sort of, it's a little L, you know what I mean? It's an L in your life that never goes away. And I didn't realize it at the time, but waiting another couple years to graduate seemed like forever to me at the time. Wow. I just thought, there's no way I can go through years of college when I could go on tour right now. And, looking back, if I just waited a couple of years, I would have had a cool degree. that I'd be proud of. And I would have gone on tour 2 years later, you know?
Celebrity Jobber. The Celebrity Jobber podcast with Jeff Zito.
So music was always the plan, huh? Music. I mean, your first job was in music. You know, you're 5 years old on your mother's season of.
I didn't have a plan, you know, and I think, you know, I don't know how 17-year-olds have life plans, but I guess they have really good parents or something, because I didn't have a really good parenting. But, you know, my mom is a loving and wonderful person, but she's not a conventional parent. And she never, ever talked to me about planning my future, you know. It wasn't something that I thought about. I was living in the moment, as it were.
Right.
And in fact, you know, the example that my parents left me was that they were always living in the moment and not looking back to the past. You know, they would just kind of move on to the next thing. And so I was very spontaneous. And, you know, I regret it a little bit, to be honest.
Any other job other than music in your life? I mean, did you ever work at a pizza place? Have you ever had a job outside of show business and music?
Not really. I mean, I don't even get paid for show business, man. So, yeah, I wouldn't even call me being a musician a job necessarily, because, you know, I'm not like my brother who has a successful music career. I just do it for the love of the game, man.
Well, you're also involved with something that your dad did many years ago. I actually was on YouTube and watched this animated film. Can you tell us about what is behind the scenes stuff? Really cool. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're currely involved with?
You mean the War is Over film that we just put out on
Yes, YouTube? War is Over.
Well,
yes, sir.
You know, I made a short film. I wrote a short film with a director named Dave Mullins, who used to work at Pixar, and he directed this animated short that is sort of an extended, I guess, music clip for the song "Happy Christmas, War is Over." But the difference is between like a regular video and this song is that this film is its own standalone narrative, and we worked really hard on it. It won an Academy Award for Best Animated Short, and now it's available for the public to see. And I'm really proud of it. We worked really hard on it, and it would really mean a lot to me if people could actually go check it out. It's only 11 minutes long. It's on YouTube. It's on the John Lennon channel. If you just search War is Over film, it should come up, and it's free. But if you want to also donate to War Child, which is a charity that we've partnered with, who help children and families with children who are affected by war. It's a really good charity. So we're trying to raise money for War Child, and we're trying to, you know, give people something to think about on Christmas.
Sean, can you tell, we all know your mom and you have such a great relationship, and I love, you know, avant-garde, you know, underground it's so cool. I mean, you got a cool mom. Can you tell us something about mom?
The Celebrity Jobber podcast with Jeff Zito. Celebrity Jobber.
Can you tell us something about mom? Like maybe that people don't know. They see Yoko and it's, you know, but tell me about mom. Can you give me a little something behind the scenes about mom?
Something behind the scenes. Well, you know, I think people don't realize what her personality is really like, you know. She's very quiet and sweet and elegant. And I would say very ladylike. You know, I think a lot of people think of her as the woman who screams on stage or you know, was standing naked with my dad on the Two Virgins cover. But she's actually very reserved and sweet and quiet. And, you know, she's a very nice lady. But she's also, I think, very brilliant, and I think she was very misunderstood for many years. And I think her time has come. I think people are finally recognizing her for her own accomplishments and for the artist who she really is. And yeah, I guess the other thing I would say is that I think people think she only does the kind of avant-garde music, but she also writes a lot of really beautiful pop songs. And There's a film that we did that I was a producer on called One to One, John and Yoko. It was about the last concert they did at Madison Square Garden. And there's footage of her singing a song called Age 39 live at a feminist meeting at a university. And it's very beautiful. And I highly recommend people go check it out because she sings great. You know, that's what I think people don't know about her.
Anything in your future as far as, I don't want to say, I know that Chiba Mato kind of reunited a few years ago, but
yeah,
anything coming up maybe?
Well, I'm still very good friends with Yuka Honda from Chiba Mato. I just saw her husband, Nels Klein, last night. But yeah, I've got a band called The Delirium with Les Claypool from Primate, and we've got a double album coming out next year, and we will be probably touring in July, I think. I'm excited about that record. It's our first double album, so it's a concept record. It's basically a rock opera. It's got a story to it, and I think it's going to be really fun. So look for that, please.
We'll do. War is Over. Happy Christmas. You go to YouTube. It's a free film, short film. Like Sean said, it's 11 minutes long. It's really cool. And it's on the John Lennon channel. And you also said that you can make a donation. Sean, could you tell us about that again real quick?
Yeah, there's a charity called War Child that we partnered with. And they're one of the best charities in the world for helping people who are affected by war. They focus on children. And we figured, because this song is really a song where kids are singing, and it's a cartoon film that we made, that we thought it made sense to partner with War Child because they help children specifically and families with children who are struggling in war-torn areas.
Listen, I really appreciate your time this morning. It was a real pleasure getting to talk to you. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
All right, later.
So if you go to YouTube and search War is Over film, you'll see not only the trailer, but the 13-minute animated short film and Academy Award winner, Best Animated Short Film, War is Over, inspired by the music of John and Yoko. Sean also says they partnered with the charity War Child, which you can find online at warchildusa.org, which is a great way to donate to a charity this time of year. And they have a donate button right there on the homepage, again, warchildusa.org. So, usually the Celebrity Jobber podcast, we try to, find out more about the celebrity before they were famous. Sean Lennon famous, like right from the beginning, from birth, okay? When you're the child of the most famous people in the world, which, I would say John Lennon and Yoko Ono were probably two most famous people in the world back in 1975 when they had Sean. So a lot of people can't relate. Pretty interesting to grow up that way. He doesn't know anything else. And I also thought it was interesting. He didn't consider music a job. He talked about his music career not being as successful as his older half-brother, Julian Lennon. He said he's pretty much in the music business for the quote-unquote for the love of the game. So I thought that was interesting. Sean also mentioned that he didn't have conventional parents, especially, growing up with Yoko Ono being his mother. She, didn't have that talk about his future and his path. It seemed like it was live in the moment was the message that, she kind of passed on to her son. Does he regret not finishing college? He does. He regrets not finishing Columbia. He said if he just waited a couple more years, he could have gotten that degree that he would have been proud of, and he could have continued to do what he quit school to do, which was go on tour with his mom. He said he was interested in anthropology, so I'm not sure he would have been an anthropologist or whatever else you would do with an anthropology degree. I think music was always going to be it for Sean Lennon, but kind of interesting that he didn't really have to worry about that. Sean did mention that, his mom, not a conventional parent, but a loving mother. And as I asked Sean to give me a little behind the scenes about his mom, he said very feminine, soft-spoken, sweet, ladylike. And he also mentioned how she has a beautiful singing voice. And it's something that we don't necessarily know either because of Yoko's avant-garde underground style of music. So he's had no big break. He's the son of Yoko Ono and John Lennon. He appeared on one of his mother's albums when he was 5 years old. I guess we can consider that being his first job. He's never worked at a pizza place or gotten paid for any other job outside of the music industry, which he doesn't consider his occupation, which is pretty interesting. When you're that type of person, you don't have to worry about things like that. I'm sure he would trade it all in tomorrow to have a relationship with his father. Thank you so much for listening. And wherever it is you listen, whether it's iHeart or Spotify, Apple Podcasts, please subscribe. Would love a 5-star rating, and please leave a review. You can follow on Instagram, celebrity_jobber_podcast. Also, the YouTube channel is youtube.com/the@celebrityjobber. Anyway, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. We'll see you next week with another episode of the Celebrity Jobber Podcast. I'm Jeff Zito.